What would you become if nothing could stop you? No laws, no consequences, no one watching. One man lived under those conditions for 19 years and refused to betray himself. Most people go through life believing they are afraid of the wrong things. They say they fear pain, they fear failure, they fear losing money, status, comfort, time. But that is not what truly terrifies a human being. What people actually fear, quietly, late at night, when there is nothing left to distract them, is the possibility that they are wasting their life, that they are becoming smaller than what they were meant to be, that one day they will realize they betrayed themselves and it will be too late to fix it. Stoicism does not soften this fear, it sharpens it. Stoicism claims that a good man is not defined by success or happiness or admiration. A good man is defined by whether he lives in accordance with nature, not nature as scenery or beauty, but nature as order, function, purpose. A tree does not negotiate its role. An eagle does not question why it must fly. They become what they are, fully without apology. Stoicism says human beings are no different. You were not born simply to feel good. You were not placed here to chase pleasure, approval, or comfort until death arrives. You were given a responsibility, and abandoning that responsibility is the only real failure. The Stoic does not fear pain. He does not fear death. He does not fear poverty, loss, or humiliation. He fears only one thing, that he might let himself down, that he might live beneath his potential, that he might die incomplete. Welcome to Stoic Silence Wisdom. This is not a video meant to motivate you. It is meant to confront you. And if you stay until the end, you may find that the question forming in your mind is not about philosophy at all, but about yourself. If this kind of content speaks to you, subscribe to the channel. Your support is what allows us to continue creating videos that do not distract you from life, but force you to face it. If that standard sounds unforgiving, it is because it was never meant to be tested under ordinary conditions. The Stoics believed a man's true character is revealed only when every external restraint is removed, when nothing forces him to behave well, when nothing punishes him for doing wrong, when desire is unlimited and consequences are absent. That is why Marcus Aurelius matters. Marcus Aurelius was not a philosopher speaking from the safety of abstraction. He was a Roman emperor ruling from 161 to 180 AD at the height of Roman power. As far as the Roman mind could comprehend, there was nothing beyond the empire. No rival civilization, no higher authority. To Marcus Aurelius, the world ended where his rule ended. In practical terms, this meant something disturbing. He could do whatever he wanted. Roman emperors were not expected to be restrained. Excess was not a flaw. It was a privilege. Indulgence was not rebellion. It was tradition, wealth, sex, wine, violence, spectacle. These were not hidden vices whispered about in shame. They were openly embraced, even celebrated. The life of a Roman emperor was, for all intents and purposes, synonymous with hedonism, and Marcus Aurelius was entirely unbound. There were no legal limits that applied to him, no social customs that constrained him, no fear of punishment, disgrace, or loss of power. If he had chosen a life of pure indulgence, no one could have stopped him, and more importantly, no one would have questioned it. History would have recorded it as normal. This is the part that makes his life impossible to ignore. Standing before the full weight of unlimited temptation, Marcus Aurelius chose restraint. Not because he was forced to, not because he feared consequences, but because he believed that power did not excuse moral failure. It exposed it. And this was not a single dramatic moment of virtue. It was not a symbolic sacrifice meant to impress others. It was a daily decision, repeated quietly over and over for nearly 20 years. Imagine that level of freedom. Imagine knowing that nothing would happen to you no matter what you chose to do. And then imagine choosing discipline anyway. At that point, Marcus Aurelius stops being a historical figure and becomes something else entirely, a mirror. And once that mirror is raised, the question it asks is unavoidable. What would you do if nothing could stop you? That question would be impossible to answer if we only saw Marcus Aurelius in public, seated on a throne, surrounded by power and ceremony. But that is not where his character reveals itself. It reveals itself in silence. What we know about the inner life of Marcus Aurelius comes from a text that was never meant to survive him. Meditations was not written for an audience. It was not crafted to persuade, to teach, or to impress. It was a private journal, fragments of thought written by a man speaking to himself, often late at night, often in moments of doubt. There was no reward attached to these words, no reputation to protect, no future reader to consider. That is precisely why they matter. When Marcus writes, he does not flatter himself, he corrects himself. He reminds himself of his own impatience, his own arrogance, his own tendency toward judgment. Again and again, he turns the blade inward. He tells himself not to be surprised by difficult people, because difficult people are part of the natural order. To expect otherwise, he writes, is to misunderstand life itself. More importantly, he refuses the comfort of moral superiority. When others act unjustly, Marcus does not allow himself the pleasure of condemnation. He reminds himself that people do not choose wrongdoing because they love evil, but because they do not see clearly. And he goes further still. He admits that even when he believes someone is wrong, he cannot be certain. Often in life, he writes, we do not understand. And worse, we do not realize that we do not understand. This is not softness. It is discipline applied where it matters most. Most people behave well when they are being watched. They become generous under praise, restrained under threat, moral under surveillance. Marcus Aurelius demanded something far more difficult of himself. He demanded virtue when there was no audience at all, no applause, no punishment, no witness, just a man alone with his thoughts, refusing to excuse himself. That is where character is forged, not in moments of recognition, but in moments of privacy, not in what you claim to value, but in what you demand of yourself when nothing forces you to do so. This is what makes Marcus Aurelius dangerous as an example, because once you understand where his discipline lived, it becomes impossible to pretend that circumstances are the reason we fall short. That inner discipline did not remain trapped on the pages of a private journal. It shaped how Marcus Aurelius understood life itself and the role a human being is meant to play within it. For Marcus, living in accordance with nature did not mean retreating into forests or rejecting the world. It meant accepting reality exactly as it is, without resentment, and responding to it with dignity. Nature, in his understanding, is order. Everything within it has a function, and everything fulfills that function without complaint. Fire burns, rain falls. Seasons change. None of these things ask whether it is fair. Human beings, Marcus believed, are no exception. You do not control what the world sends your way. You do not control the people you encounter, the obstacles you face, or the losses you will suffer. To wish otherwise is to wish for a universe that does not exist. Asking life to remove difficulty, Marcus wrote, is like asking a vine to grow without thorns. Difficult people are part of the natural order. So is adversity. Rather than resisting this truth, Marcus urged himself to prepare for it. When others act selfishly, cruelly, or foolishly, he does not respond with outrage. He reminds himself that ignorance is far more common than malice. People act wrongly, not because they wake up intending to be bad, but because they do not see clearly. And even then, Marcus refuses the comfort of superiority. He asks himself a harder question. Who am I to judge when I carry my own faults, often hidden from my own awareness? This inward turn is not weakness. It is accountability stripped of ego. The same clarity governs his view of hardship. Marcus does not treat adversity as an interruption of life. He treats it as life. Hardship is not a punishment nor a mistake. It is guaranteed, and because it is guaranteed, it must be met with preparation rather than complaint. When something painful happens, Marcus tells himself not to collapse into self-pity. Do not dramatize it, do not protest it. Instead, act, endure. Meet the moment as a person who understands that strength is proven under pressure, not in comfort. Even death is approached with this same seriousness. Death for Marcus Aurelius is not a tragedy inflicted upon us. It is an assignment given to us, just as nature assigns us to live, to work, to contribute. it also assigns us to die. To fear death excessively is to misunderstand one's place in the order of things. So while you are here, Marcus reminds himself, live properly, be useful, be fair, be patient, fulfill your role without complaint, and when the end comes, accept it without bitterness, knowing that you have done the work that was given to you. In this way, Marcus Aurelius transforms life itself into a moral practice. Every interaction, every setback, every loss becomes a test, not of luck or intelligence, but of character. When life is understood this way, one final distinction becomes impossible to ignore. The Stoics were careful to separate what feels good from what actually makes a life good. Pleasure, they argued, is fleeting by nature. It depends on conditions you do not control. It rises and disappears, often leaving you weaker than before. Wealth can vanish, status can erode, admiration can turn without warning. None of these things are stable enough to serve as the foundation of a human life. Happiness, in the Stoic sense, is something far more demanding. It is not an emotion that visits you when circumstances are favorable. It is a condition of being that comes from alignment. Alignment between who you are and how you live, between your values and your actions, between your potential and your conduct. Marcus Aurelius did not believe that suffering ruined a life. He believed that moral failure did. To live comfortably while neglecting one's duty was, to him, a far greater tragedy than pain, loss, or hardship. A person could endure almost anything and remain whole, so long as they did not abandon themselves in the process. This is why the Stoics insisted that only one thing is truly worth fearing, not death, not poverty, not misfortune, but the quiet erosion of one's character. Greatness in this view is not rare because it is difficult. It is rare because it is demanding. It asks you to hold yourself to a standard, even when no one is watching, even when nothing is at stake except your own integrity. And that decision, whether to live up to that standard or not, belongs to no one else, only you. True Stoic wisdom isn't about controlling the world around you. It's about mastering yourself when no one is watching, when nothing forces you to act well, and when the only standard left is your own conscience. What do you think matters more in life? Discipline or desire? Share your thoughts in the comments so others can learn from your perspective. If this video resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue creating thoughtful content like this.